Hey everyone, and welcome to part 12 of the Godot top-down shooter tutorial. In this video, you're going to learn how to make bases that you, your team, or enemies can capture by stepping over them, like here. So you'll see that if I step over this, after 10 seconds, whichever team has the majority of units in the area will capture that base, and it can be recaptured over and over. So you'll learn how to make this. But before we get into the tutorial, I just wanted to give a real quick message to thank you all for the recent support that the channel's had. Hey everyone, I just wanted to say a huge thank you. This last week we hit over 250 subscribers, which on one hand is not a huge number. It's still a small channel, but to go from 0 to that in basically a month is just absolutely nuts. And I think it's just been really affirming and encouraging for me because I love making tutorials and I want to put content out there that is helpful for you guys. That is the main goal that I have, and I love getting to do it. And to see such a positive response and to see all the comments and feedback and suggestions that you guys leave in every video is so heartwarming, and it is so helpful to know that people find it helpful. So I just wanted to take a second and just give a huge, massive thank you to everyone who's subscribed, who's watched the videos, who's left comments, and just, you know, helped this grow and who's found it helpful to go through these tutorials. So thank you again. It means a ton, and I'm super excited to keep putting more stuff out there to hopefully help you be a better game dev. So I just wanted to take a quick moment and say that. All right, so let's get started by first making our capturable base or capturable object scene. So I'm going to add a new node here, and I'll just make this a static let's make it an area, because I don't think we're going to have physics or want to have it collide with anything right now. So let's make an area 2D here. I'll call this capturable base, and let's add a collision shape 2D, and I'm also going to add a sprite to it. Now for the sprite, I'm just going to use from our top-down shooter pack. I'm just going to grab the complete tile sheet here, make a new atlas texture, and drag this in. There we go. And I'm going to just grab, there's like this little white circle here that I'm going to use just so that we can modulate it really easily, so we can change the color without actually needing another texture. I think I've got it there. Perfect. Okay, so this is going to be our capturable base. Let me move it kind of into the middle here. And let's make our collision shape. We'll just make it be a square or a rectangle. And so let's make it, whoops, let's drag it. Oh man, I can't hit this corner one. There we go. All right, doesn't really matter how big it is. Let's make it that big. Okay. And so there's a couple things we need to do. One, I'm going to instance a team scene under it. And I'm going to say, oh yeah, so we need to add a neutral team, right? So first let me open up our team script. I'm going to add a neutral team to it. I'm also going to do class name team here, just so that we have a good reference to all these variables. And then what I want to do is set our capturable base to be the neutral team by default. I feel like that should be the default here. Let's just do that. Okay, so now we have this capturable base, and now what we need to do is add a script to it and start adding some handling, and I think we're just going to use an onBodyEntered. So whenever a player, an ally, or an enemy enters this collision shape, we're going to keep track of how many units from each team are in it, and if the majority of units are from the team that does not own it, then we will start a timer that will switch ownership of the base. And if it's neutral, then basically whenever any unit from either team enters it, it will start that countdown. So I don't know if we'll get a full, we're going to spend a bunch of time making a really full, complete handling for different teams and having different counts of units and, you know, starting and stopping the timer. I don't know if we need to get that fancy. We'll kind of see how it goes, but basically it's just going to be whoever has the majority of units can capture the base, maybe after like a 10-second timer. So that's kind of going to be the plan for now. Okay, first let me grab our sprite here and I'm just gonna try modulating it. So I think let's just do red and blue. Oh yeah, that looks good. Or maybe we should do green and blue so it matches, kind of matches the color theme there. So let's just do, let's just do this. So I'm gonna copy and paste this color here, and then for you at home, just find some like kind of forest green color or whatever. I'm going to attach a script here. So what I want to do is just see visually, like pick a color for our team and for the enemy team of what will turn the base to when it's captured, so that you can kind of have a visual cue of who owns it. And so what I'm going to do is say var, I'll say player color equals this. And eventually these are probably things that should live in our team variable. We should probably, I think, like ideally if we wanted to have this structured the best way, we would probably make our teams be resources that had, their like team index, that had a team color, that had, other data. But for now, we're just using this node. We don't have like preset teams. We're just using an enum to switch between. So I'll just, we can just manually store the colors in our base right now, since that's the only place we're going to use it. But just as a heads up, there are probably better ways to do that, but not a big deal. Okay, so we'll use that green for our, for our player team. And then for our enemy, let's use kind of a steel blue, light or dark steel blue. That looks pretty good. Slightly purpley perhaps, or lavendery. And then we will say var enemy color equals color. And we can make these exports just so that we can adjust them from the editor if need be. So export color var. Okay, cool. So now we can see up here, these are the colors. Oh, and obviously we're going to need a, I shouldn't say obviously, but we're also going to need a var neutral color, which will just be color of 1, 1, 1, 1. So just basic white. Okay, and so what I'm gonna do is reset the modulate on our sprite here. And now we're ready to start adding in some of the handling for when units enter the radius to capture the base. So let's first do this by selecting our capturable base. And let me just make this its own scene right now, just so that we have that. We should have kind of like a game objects folder, some kind of a like, world items, but I'll just save it in our main for right now. Okay. And good. Cool. Perfect. So let me come back into main. And so what I'm going to do, actually we'll do this from within our scene here. What I'm going to do is connect our body entered and our body exited signals. And so the easy way to handle and keep track of who was in our radius is just to use the process function of our capturable base. That'd be totally fine, but we don't need to check that every single frame. So we can get a little bit better performance and be a little bit smarter about it by just using these signals here. So we're only changing, or we're only, adjusting who we are keeping track of when we actually have a new body entered or a current body that has exited. So I'm just going to connect both of these in here. Also connect the body exited. Okay, and so what we're basically going to want to do is make sure for both of these functions, one, does our body have a team? Because if our body doesn't have a team, it's clearly not something we care about. Two, then we're going to want to see if the body, which team that body is on, and we're probably going to want to keep track of the player team and the enemy team. If we had more teams, or we had a dynamic amount of teams, then we would need to do something a little bit more advanced. But because we know at this point we're only going to have 2 teams and the neutral team, but we don't really care about that, we can kind of explicitly check and keep track of how many player team units we have and how many enemy team units we have. So it'll make it a little bit easier for us just to do that. So for both these functions, we're going to check and see the team. And then if it enters, we're going to basically +1 to the player team count or the enemy team count. And if it exits, exits the area, we're just going to subtract 1. And then we'll just have some handling whenever we do one of those 2 things to see, okay, has the balance changed? Like, is the team that does not currently control the base now the majority owner of units within the base? And in that case, we need to start some sort of a timer to switch over. And then if the other team does not get more people in there or reestablish majority in that time, then the base will flip. So just wanted to kind of outline what that logic is going to look like so you can kind of think through it and maybe plan on your own how you might want to implement it. And then we can get started on how we'll do it for this tutorial, but feel free to adjust as needed if you've got other ideas. So let's get started. I think we can just do this with integers. So I'm going to do var player unit count, and so we'll set to 0, and var enemy unit count, which will be an integer also, and we'll set that to 0. And so let's add a check here, and we'll say 1. Let me just get rid of. I know there's a way you can change what the Godot templates look like so that when you create a new script, it changes like what things are there by default. I've just been too lazy to change that, but I hate having all the placeholder code in there, even though it is helpful if you're just getting started out. So we will say if body that has hold on, come back to that, because from within our player script. Okay, so we do have a team variable here, and on our enemy we do as well. And this is just using our actor script, so we have it on both. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we could check and see. We can use duck typing to see as oh, that's right. I think has prop. Jeez, I can't type. Oh my goodness. So there is a method called has property that I think is going to be available in Godot 3.2.2, and this is currently 3.2.1. But you can also do something like if team in body, and this also is a way to do that. I tried to avoid that if possible. I think you can also do body.has node, but I think we have a get team function. Yeah, on both of those. So we've already had to do this before, I forgot. So we'll say if body has method. I prefer using methods over checking properties because I feel like the way you store data might change between different types of units or whatever type of like thing you're trying to use. But methods, it's like using interfaces, right, in an object-oriented language. So this means like it doesn't matter how the data is stored, just that the interface you interact with it is the same. And we'll say get team. So we will have this check. I'm going to add this to our on exit too because we're going to need it here. And now we can actually do our handling. Okay, so let's do another check here, and we'll say if body.get team. Let's do that. One sec. Actually, let's do var team equals body.get team. There we go. Okay, so this is going to return to us an integer, but we know it's going to line up with the team name enum that we set up within our team script. So we can say if team. I'm going to call this body team actually just to differentiate because I think we're going to have a variable here called team as well. So if body team equals, we'll say team.teamName.enemy. So we can reference, because this is an enum, they're kind of, you can reference them from other scripts, even though we don't have, like we're not actually accessing a team node or script itself. We're accessing, it's kind of like a static enum that you can access. So we'll say enemy unit count plus equals 1. And then here we can do same thing. We'll just do an elif player. And this isn't a super, fancy way to do this, but it's simple and it works. Okay, and we're going to need to do this check down here as well, except it's going to be a little bit different because we want to subtract that. So if someone enters, we add 1 to that count, and then the opposite if someone leaves. And then I think what we're going to do now down here is have a function called function check whether base team needs change. Check whether base can be captured. Let's do that. Okay, and so what we're going to need to do is get a onReady variable. We'll say onReady var team equals team. Feels like we've done this before because we have multiple times. So what we can do here, and let me just say pass here, and we're going to call this on both of these. So whenever someone enters or exits, we need to check whether we need to start the base capture timer basically. So I'm just going to say check whether base can be captured, grab this, and we'll call this again down here. Okay. And so here's where we're actually going to check, okay, do, one, if it's neutral, then if there's anyone here, they need to capture it. And then two, if it's not neutral, does the team that does not currently own it have a majority? And so that's what we'll check in here. Okay, so let's just be explicit about this logic as we build it out, and then we can perhaps find ways to make it nicer later on. But we'll just kind of painstakingly write all of the code right now. So we'll say if team.team equals team.teamName.neutral. So if it's neutral, then we just need someone there. So then we're probably going to need another function too. Hold on one sec. Just as a helper, I'll say func get team with majority. And this will return an integer. And then we will say if enemy unit count. Oh, whoops, sorry. I was confused by that error, but realized that. Let me just put that there. So if enemy unit count equals 0 and player unit count equals 0, we will return team.teamName.neutral. Okay, so if we don't have anyone there, we just return neutral. And then we can say, so if enemy unit count greater than, actually okay, so sorry, I'm changing this up. So if they're both 0, oh, we don't even need this. We really just need to check if they equal each other. So, okay, take it all back. Sorry. I thought I knew, I remembered everything that I need here, but I think that'll be good. So if they equal each other, whether that's 0 or not, we just return neutral. And then we say if enemy unit count, let's do elif, if enemy unit count greater than player unit count, we'll return team.teamName.enemy. Okay. And wow, rootin'. I don't know what I was typing there. Oh my Lanta. All right. If I guess we can just do else really. Return team.teamName.player. Okay, so this is just like a helper function that will return for us which team is currently capturing it. And so here we can say if yeah, I think before when I was talking about the neutral thing, like I don't actually think it matters. It's really just like whichever team has a majority. And so I think yeah, I think we can just say var majority team and say get team with majority. And if I just kind of trailed off before I actually explained that, what I mean is like I don't even really think it matters whether the base has been captured or not. Like it's really going to be the same check. It's really just like, is there a team with a majority? Because if it hasn't been captured, but there's 3 people from each team, we're still not going to be able to capture it. So we can say if majority team does not equal team.teamName.neutral. So if we have a majority that is not neutral, which we will return because no team has a majority. So there is actually a team with a majority. Then we can return that. And one sec, I need to think about whether we need to return the team or a Boolean here. And I think we want to do the team, but let me just think about this for a minute. Okay, yeah, so I think after thinking about it for a second, we probably don't want to return anything here. We can just try having the logic in here for now. So there's going to be a couple cases. So I'm going to change this and say if the majority team is neutral. So if the majority team is neutral, we just return. Nothing happens. Then we can say elif majority team equals, and here we will say team.team. So whatever team currently owns this base is the majority team. Then what we need to do is like stop the capture countdown if it is started. So we can't just ignore it if this happens, right? Because it's possible that say the team that does not own the base brings a majority in and they start to capture it, but then more reinforcements from the current owning team come in, we need to stop the countdown. So we need to handle a changing majority back to the owning team differently than just no majority. So we need to do that. And then also we'll have our else here, which is just going to be we start the countdown. So start the capture countdown. Perfect. And so now what we're going to want to do is add a timer to our base. So I'll say timer, and let's call this capture timer. Okay. And I'm going to connect the timeout for this here. And so I'm going to just, I'll also have a variable here. I think this is probably the easiest way to do it. And we can set var team to capture as an integer, and we'll set this to be team.teamName.neutral. So basically, whenever the capture timer is started, we will set this to be the team that is capturing it. And then if it completes successfully, we will set the team to be the team to capture. But if it is stopped, we will revert this to be neutral. So it'll just be kind of a placeholder variable we use to keep track of which team is currently capturing the base at a given moment. Okay, so let's, before we forget, configure our timer here. Let me also get a variable, a reference to it. Unready var capture timer equals capture timer. Perfect. And so let's set our wait time to be 10. Let's set it to be one shot and not auto start. So we pretty much manually have to control everything about it, which is fine. And so here what we will say, it's really all going to be in here, is start the capture countdown. So we will say team to capture equals, we'll say team.teamName.player if I don't even need to do this. We're already keeping track of this. The team to capture is the majority team. Okay, perfect. So making that way too complicated. So we'll set our team to capture to be the majority team, and we will set our capture timer to be started. And just as a note, if you're kind of feeling lost or there's like just a lot going on, that's totally fair. This is kind of when you think about it, like there's kind of complicated logic here, right? Like we're trying to determine which team has majority while also keeping track of how many units are there. So it is a complicated thing we're trying to do. So if you feel lost, don't worry about it. Just watch through parts that are confusing a few times. Feel free to leave any questions in the comments and I'll try and get to them. But I hope that it is pretty easy to tag along so far. So yeah, right here. So if we have a majority team that's not the currently owning team, we start the capture timer and set this. And then here, if the majority team is now our team, we just need to make sure that we stop the capture timer if it was already running. It might not have been, but we'll still stop it anyway. No harm there. And we'll set team to capture equals team.teamName.neutral. I don't think we need to do that because the only time we should ever look at this variable is if the capture timer finishes. But I'm going to set it there just in case because for trying to get rid of any unforeseen conditions or situations. So, man, I really feel like there's probably better ways to handle all this logic, but this hopefully will work, and I think it'll be good enough. We don't need anything super complex besides how complex, just doing something like this is naturally. So, on capture timeout here, what we can do is say team.team equals team to capture. So we will flip the currently owning team, and then our timer should just stop. So I think that's all that we need to do. It's a little bit easier since we only have two teams, but yeah, we flip the current team that owns the base, and this will still work because we're just getting the team with the majority. And then it'll only flip back if the other team, so this won't be the case, but then if the other team gets a majority, then we'll come through here and it'll start it again. So I think this is good. And one thing we can do now, just to kind of give a visual here, is say onReady var sprite. I'll set this to be the sprite, and here's where we can use that modulate. And I'm going to add a function to this just so that we always have handling when we need. And we'll say function set team. And what I will do here is just take in a team. And here I'm going to say team.team equals team. Wow. All right. Let's say new team just to be explicit there. There's a lot of, looking back at it now, there are a lot of variables here named team, which is my bad. That was poor planning. But just to make sure, this is the team node on our capturable base, and this is the parameter coming in, which is just an integer. So just to be clear, and then we can say if new team, actually let's just do a match. So we'll say match, match. And if you don't know what a match is in Godot or GD script, it's basically the equivalent of a switch statement in any other language. So we can say match new team, and then 1 second, we'll come down here and we can say team.teamname.neutral, and then we will say sprite.modulate equals neutral color, I believe, and then just return. And cool. We'll say team.teamname.player, and we will say sprite.modulate equals player color. This should probably be its own function, but we'll just do it. We're only doing it here right now, so just for ease, I'll keep it here. And sprite.modulate equals enemy color. Okay, and let's return there too, and return there. So we set a new team, and then we change the color. I think we're going to need this pretty soon. I'm going to add a signal and say base captured by new team. And so what we can do is emit this signal here. Signal base captured, and we will say new team. And then I think this is going to let us, when we start doing UI, hopefully in just a few episodes, once we get all the core mechanics out of the way, then we actually have something we can listen to here to update our UI based on this. But I think this is good to go. I just need to call this here. So we'll call set team, and we will pass in team to capture. Okay, so I think we've got everything here. Let's give it a try, make sure it works, and I'm gonna try and make sure we don't have any bugs. So there was one thing I forgot that we were missing, and what happened is because we added a new team name, so we added this neutral, and I wasn't even thinking about it, and I added it to the top, it kind of displaced the team values for the scenes we already had. So I need to come into our player here, and you'll see if I select the team, it's reset back to neutral, but we want to change this to be player. Then come to our enemy, I'll select the team, change this to be enemy, and our ally, same thing, change our ally to be player. Okay, so now we've got all of our scenes have teams again, and because we don't currently have a UI for this, what I do want to do is just add some really quick logging, just so that you can kind of monitor the progress of your base as things are being captured or not. So if I come into, it's really all going to happen in this function, right? So I can say, I'll just do print owning team %d. I won't do it. Owning team regained majority, stopping capture clock. So we'll just print that out if the clock stops, and I'll say new team has majority in base starting capture clock. And ideally, what would be really cool is if we had a way to visually show that something was being captured, like if, you know, the sprite like slowly changed color, or there was like a gradient or something around it. And we can definitely do that. I don't know if we'll get to it in this video, or what we can do is even just have something else on the UI that represents it, even if you don't see it out here. But now that we have that, if I run this, we should see, if I open up output down here, output, then open this back up. Oh no, there we go. So, all right, I'm still not being attacked by our guys, which is good. And now if I come into here, you'll see that we have a new team with a majority. And so if we wait 10 seconds, we should see this flip to be our team. Give it any minute. You also, there we go. Cool. So look, we can actually capture a base, and if one of these guys came up here, they would capture it. We just don't have the current implementation of our AI yet to go to and try and capture a base, which is what we're going to do in our next video, is just add some very simple handling to have like a campaign AI that knows where the next base is and to tell our units on both teams to go towards it. One other quick thing you'll notice is that this is always being drawn in front of the player right now because of where it is on the scene tree. So we can fix that real quick, but otherwise I think we're pretty much good as far as having bases that can be captured, which is awesome. So, oh, this is funny. I can come back to and, hello friend. Oh, I just pushed him out. That was weird. But anyway, sorry, got distracted. But so we can change that. I'm just going to move our capturable base up to the top here. Eventually, we'll probably have managers or containers like for our bullets to help organize our things in our scene tree. You can also use something called a Y sort to handle that, which sorts things based on their Y components. Since we're top down, it's a little bit easier because we don't have like a side perspective. But now if I run this, should see that my guy can, I don't know why, I just want to shoot a friend. Now I can walk over our base. Oh, hey, chill out. But yeah, cool. So we've basically got capturable bases, guys. And in the next video, we're going to actually handle telling our AI to go and capture the next base. So we've pretty much got like the majority of our game here as far as the core mechanics. Once we get AI that actually go to capture bases, the last thing we really need to do is respawn so that like the game doesn't stop when you kill people. And then we'll have capturable, oh, I need to reload. Then we'll have capturable bases. We'll have AI that go to them. And what I want to do from there, just to give you a heads up on plans for the series, because I don't want it to go too long. I want to have a good stopping point. After that, my plan is to show you how to use tile maps in Godot so that we can actually add a map to our game. And then hopefully to add our UI, so you can actually get good indications of how much ammo you have, what your health is, what bases are owned. And it's just going to be really simple. We're not going to do anything fancy, but just add some UI and add fix our AI so that it'll work with going to bases. And then we're pretty much going to have a complete game that is ready for you to take and expand and do whatever you want with. So anyway, guys, thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it. Let me know in the comments any suggestions, feedback, or questions you have, and I'll see you in the next video.